So, antidote to delusion, Sonny tells me. So let's just motivate, put our, as Tibetans would say, set our motivations. We might say, state our purpose. Why are we here together? Why are we here together? To listen, think about, analyze, contemplate these words coming from the Buddhism, about how to live our lives, really. How to be more specifically, how to be less neurotic, less miserable, and more content and more happy, and therefore more useful, more beneficial on this planet. Basically, it's that. So we're going to sing a little prayer that expresses this idea that we're listening so we can be of benefit to others. Sangye charan soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyabsu chi dagi chernien gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok sangye charan soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyabsu chi dagi chernien gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok Sangye charan soke chognam la janchu badu jagni kyapsu chi dagi chernyen gi personam ki drola penshir sangye drupa shok. Yeah, so it's a weird phrase, isn't it? Delusions, we don't use it. I mean, you know, you're considered to be, if you're accused of being delusional, you're kind of seriously mentally ill, isn't it? You're living in la la land. Well, as I always like to say, that's exactly bullseye for the Buddha, because he's saying exactly that's our problem. It's such a specific view, you know. I mean, Buddha, one way of talking about all of Buddhism, you hear about the Four Noble Truths, Buddha's first teaching, and the reference point for it is suffering. So there is suffering, there are causes, you can get rid of it, and how to do it, pretty simply. So, and that sounds appealing, you know, I'd like to get rid of suffering. But then to hear Buddha's reason, what suffering, even suffering is easy to understand, one level of it, certainly the gross level. But when we hear the causes of suffering, that's when Buddha gets really shocking. I mean, that's a simple way to put it. It's quite shocking. He says, we are the main cause. I know it sounds absurd. What he means by that. So, okay, that brings in, if we say it that way, that brings in the big picture, you know, which is the view of karma, which is, even most Buddhists don't particularly like it and don't even think much about it. You know, most Buddhist teachings, you go places that say they're Buddhist and teach mindfulness practice, for example, there won't be much talk about karma. But if you look at Buddhism from the big picture point of view, from the long-term point of view, the view of karma is absolutely central to the entire Buddhist worldview, because Buddhism is a worldview, which might be initially surprising. We just hear it as religion, you know, but it's a worldview. It's a view. It's a way of seeing the world, a way of understanding beings, understanding ourselves and why we suffer, how to get rid of it, and how to get happy, and therefore how to help others, basically. So Buddha's analysis, you know, the sort of the more short-term look at it, and that's shocking enough. Let's look at that one first. So forget karma for now. Forget Buddha's view that we come into this life. We come into this life. We're not made. We don't start in this life made by a creator or by our mother. No, we come into our mind comes into this life, which is a very, very different view. But even if we forget that one, Buddha's analysis of why we're happy and why we suffer, because the same analysis, the main causes are within the person themselves. The main cause is oneself. And that's pretty shocking. So as far as we're concerned, happiness is what we get when we get good things, isn't it? People are kind to us, the body's healthy, the weather's nice. You understand? We sort of broadly, that's kind of happiness, isn't it? And the opposite is kind of broadly what suffering is. Speaking very simply, I think everyone would agree with that. Dogs and the monkeys as well, you know. So as far as we're concerned, then the main cause of happiness is what's out there. The main cause of happiness is when the good things happen. which is, I mean, it's pretty reasonable. It's pretty logical we think that. Because look at what, from the time we wake up in the morning and the time we go to bed at night, if you think about it, look at yourself or others, what mainly determines our actions, is to get the nice things. And the most obvious level, the most simple level, and the most obvious level is the objects of the five senses, isn't it? It's pretty, that's the outside world, isn't it? There's me with my five senses and my mind, then there's the outside world. So as far as we're concerned, and how do we know we want to be happy? We just have to look inside, feel. We all want to be happy, and we don't want suffering. That's something fundamental. And again, we can look at the dogs and the monkeys, and we can agree that it's the same, So the most obvious gross level, we can see that we all really do believe that happiness comes from everything being nice, the external world, but of course, crucially, our own body. If our body is suffering, no matter how beautiful the cake is, we're still, the body dominates, doesn't it? If you've got a headache, you don't care how nice the cake is. If you've got a really serious, terrible headache, you don't care how nice the boyfriend is. The body dominates everything, So if the body feeling good and our five senses receive pleasant objects, then that's what we mean by happiness. Very simply speaking. We mightn't put it so bluntly, but if we look at our behavior, we can deduce that. So what's Buddha's point? And therefore we can deduce the same for suffering, isn't it? If the body is not happy and the things out there are not pleasing to our five senses, then we would say that's called suffering. Pretty simply, I would think. So we spend all our energy trying to get the nice things and avoid the ugly. So from Buddha's perspective, it's the mind that we have to look at. Even the way we interpret, it comes from the mind. So what drives this activity, we just say, oh, I want to be happy. There's like some broad feeling in me that wants to be happy. But we've got to be more specific from the Buddhist perspective to look inside the mind. So this is where we talk about delusions, So very simply, Buddha will talk about there are states of mind that are neurotic, disturbing, distressing, distorted, delusional. It's 4 Ds, I don't mean it. Delusional, it's a very curious concept. Distressing, yeah, we get it. Anger, attachment, jealousy, low self-esteem, anxiety, arrogance. They're distressing, definitely. And so that's very clear. But then our trouble is we know they're distressing. But even if we look at those states of mind, we think something out there is the cause of why I'm even got them. The Buddha is far more fundamental. He says they are themselves the cause of our suffering. Those states of mind are themselves the cause of suffering. So from our perspective, the way to change the depression is try and change something on the outside, including the body. Anger is about something or someone. So if you change that, the anger will go away. So even when it comes to those states of mind, we know they're distressing. Therefore, they cause suffering. But we think they're not the things that should be changed. We think something out there should change. So the Buddha's point right there is, one, and this is shocking, the main cause of the suffering, if someone's mean to you, we think that's the main cause of my suffering, that's why I'm angry. And the Buddha says, no, he doesn't agree, he doesn't disagree the person's being mean to you. He doesn't disagree. Equally, he doesn't disagree if the person's being kind to you. So we think that's the main cause of my happy feelings. He says, well, not. No, they're not. They're not the main cause. They're not the main cause. Your happy feelings are your own. And these people out there, the nice, pleasant action is merely a catalyst that triggers these feelings in you, these states of mind in you. So his emphasis is on the mind. He's not saying it's, the punch in the nose isn't a main cause of is not a main cause of the happiness. He's not saying that. But we say it's the main cause. That's it, period. And that anger is this inevitable result. And it's not my fault. Broadly speaking, we say like that. He's got a subtle analysis of the mind. And he would say the anger itself is the main cause of the suffering. And the logic of that would be that if you're feeling irritable that morning and your hubby says something and you get angry, and we assume he's the main cause. But tomorrow morning, because you're not feeling so irritable, what the same thing he does or says doesn't make you unhappy. So that has to be proof of something. That has to prove something. So what's different is the mind. So the Buddhists, I mean, even if we don't even agree that it's the main cause, maybe we're not even sure about that. But at least what he does say is, well, you know what, you can change it. You can learn to be in charge of your mind. To forget even about being the main cause, which seems too much. Well, we can prove it. And karmically, we can prove it as well, from the Buddhist perspective. But the real point is, even if you think the boyfriend is the main cause of your suffering, the anger is yours, and we can change it. And what would happen if you changed it? This is the point now. What would happen if you changed it? If you got rid of the anger, then you wouldn't suffer. That's very simple. You wouldn't suffer. That's a fact. So maybe it gets a bit extreme when someone's house cutting you into pieces, or I've no anger but it's still painful. No, that's definitely true. But in normal daily life, the whole point, the benefit of Buddhist practice, the benefit. Forget karma, forget main causes, but the benefit of Buddhist practice, if we are prepared to try it, so we can change our mind. And that's I remember somebody when they started talking about neuroscience and neuroplasticity, you're not stuck with your brain you're born with, which is how they used to think. As one person said, it's the greatest finding of the 20th century, one scientist. Well, I mean, it's just putting it another way what Buddha's been saying for 2,500 years, but never mind that. So the methods, the method you use to change your brain, you don't go in there with a scalpel. This is what's the point. The interesting point is the method you use to change your brain is to change your thoughts. That's what Buddha's saying. The whole business of, what do they call now? They call it growing new, what's the word again? I forget. Channels in your brain. What do they say? New pathways. Developing new pathways, creating new pathways in your brain. Well, the method you use to do that is change your thoughts. Broadly speaking, a lot of therapy these days, one called cognitive behavioral therapy and variations of that one. What are you doing? Changing your thoughts. So we know it's true. And that's all Buddha's on about. As simple as that. He's your best, your best cognitive behavioral therapist. He came up with it, in fact. You could say that. Change your thoughts. So this has got nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with karma, nothing to do with even being the main cause. It's the simplest point. And of course, still the most difficult. Why? Because when we are angry or hurt or upset or depressed or anxious or jealous, this is the trouble. It seems so all-consuming, doesn't it? And it seems so utter, so total, so complete, so absolute, that it's set in stone. This is how it is. What do you mean, change my thoughts? In fact, when you say, even more shocking, when you say you're depressed and you say, well, change your thoughts, we think, what's that got to do with depression, Same with anger. What's that got to do with thoughts, we'll say? Because we're so addicted to emotions. And the whole Buddhist approach is we have to unpack the emotions, to go beneath the emotions, to get to hear the conceptual thoughts, the story, the script that our mind is writing, But because it's so habitual, we don't even notice it's a script. We don't even notice that feelings aren't driven by. We don't notice that feelings are driven. Feelings are driven by thoughts, but at a much subtler level. We tend to think thoughts are more gross and feelings are more subtle. It's the other way around for the Buddha. Because when we say feelings We just mean the body, and the body is the grossest level of our being. We just mean the body, you know, and our trouble is, as we talk, we don't notice what's happening in our mind until we feel it in the body. This is one of the major, I'd say the major reasons why we all go crazy in the West, because we leave it until too late to do something about it, because we don't pay attention to our thoughts. And that's all it means, paying attention to your mind. Nothing mysterious, nothing kind of mystical. Thoughts. Pay attention to the thoughts. But the trouble is there are 1,000 a second, so it's kind of hard, isn't it? You know. So these delusions, what are they? Well, they're the distressing ones, the neurotic ones, the distressing ones, the miserable ones, the unhappy ones. And in their nature, from the Buddhist analysis, in their nature, they are I-based, which sounds very cruel. They're I-based. They're self-centered by definition. Very hard to see that. So why it's hard to see it too is because they come along with, like in a big soup, with the opposite types of states of mind. This is Buddha's very clear analysis, dividing them into these two categories: neurotic, disturbing, deluded, I-based, self-centered, and the other lot, not disturbing, not deluded, not neurotic, not I-based, positive states of mind. We all know these: love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. We know this so well. We know we've got all of them, but in our troubles, in our culture, we give equal status to them, as if they're all a normal person has a little bit of everything, you know. So much so that you'd be abnormal if you didn't. But this is the Buddhist point. This is so different. So in the long term, we can rid the mind totally of the neuroses. That's it. Most of us won't get that job done this life. It's very radical, extreme, highly advanced, but it's possible. In the Buddhist analysis, it's completely possible. And there's logical reasons for that when we study the mind. It's not initially evident. There are logical reasons when we understand the way these mental afflictions, these delusions, these neurotic states of mind function. Well, what's the antidote to something? The antidote to something is the opposite, isn't it? So that means if you want to find an antidote to anger, you've got to know what anger is. You want to find an antidote to attachment or jealousy or depression. Let's analyze exactly what we think they are, you know. I mean, everyone maybe will have a different definition, but let's look at the Buddhist one. So the key function of the neuroses, the key function of these the deluded states of mind, and why they're called deluded, is that the degree to which we're caught up in them is quite literally the degree to which we are distorting or exaggerating what's going on out there. It's a very clear point. And I think we can prove that pretty easily. We do it often enough with the example of attachment. You know, that's the one thing. We'll look into that distorted part, which is the key way that causes suffering. But the other thing that's important is to see that they've all got a very intimate relationship. In the Buddhist analysis, they've got a very intimate relationship. So, as we know from reading Buddhist books, he talks about three poisons, these three main neurotic states of mind. So the main one, the root one, we'll leave it alone, we'll just mention it. The root one, such that when it is uprooted, that's when we've achieved liberation. That's what Buddha means by nirvana. When you've uprooted that from your mind, you've liberated yourself from suffering and its causes. So that one is the root. That one is this deeply, so subtle, there's no equivalent in our culture, in modern psychology, no equivalent. This is all these delusions, all these neuroses, all these afflictions, they all share a specific function. Like I said before, they exaggerate, they distort. The degree to which they are prevailing in our mind is the degree to which things are appearing, as Lamazow puts it, the degree to which things appear back to us. Not accurately. Such an odd way to put it, but I think we can prove it pretty easily. So the two main voices of the root one, you can call it ignorance. Very specifically, the colloquial level of it is, colloquially, you can call it ego grasping. This is primordially deep, so subtle we can't even hear it. It's at an utter level of assumption. And it's a primordial feeling of this concrete, set in stone kind of me. And its nature is fear. Whereas most of the time it's sleeping. And when it wakes up strongly, when someone really attacks you, that's when it arises like a sleeping lion, and the total fear arises. We know that one. So that's the root delusion, Buddha says. That's the root cause of all problems. And then the two main voices, the next one, you have these three, they've got a hierarchical relationship, is attachment. So that's again, always a confusing word in our culture. We think of it as a nice thing. But the Buddha's analysis of this thing he calls attachment is the main voice of this ego grasping. It's dissatisfaction, emotional hunger, it's fearful, it's never satisfied, always wants something more. It's distressing. And its key function, it exaggerates the delicious qualities of something. Attachment. And it's there all the time. That's one way of putting it. It's one way of saying it's very specific function when it comes to the object of attachment, the person, the thing, the sound, the smell, whatever it is we're attached to. It exaggerates. But before that, there's a feeling of dissatisfaction, therefore a feeling of emotional hunger, missing something. You're hungry for something, but you're missing it. This is continuous. This is there all the time. It's only when it's extreme that we notice it. There's this constant feeling of never having enough, never being enough, dissatisfied. And that's from having practiced attachment in the past. So then this next, its function is to manipulate, to control, to get what that I wants. So a kind of a cruel way of talking about attachment and how it causes so much suffering is this constant assumption that I must get what I want every second, or a constant assumption that to get the nice things. This is the main driver within us, the main driver in the getting of the nice things. That's attachment's job. And of course, nice by definition means what I want. As soon as it's your nice and it's not my nice, then there's problems, isn't it? We know that. So attachment only wants what I want. Or another way it says it only wants the nice things. It can only handle the nice things. It's quite fragile. It's like a fragile child. It only wants the nice things. It only desperately wants nice things. So it's driving everything we do, including all the good parts of us. It's mixing with the good parts of us as well. And the assumption is that when I get that nice thing, then I'll get happy, then I'll get satisfied. That's the method. Attachment is the main part of our mind that drives us in our attempts to get happiness. So the assumption of attachment is when I get that, then I'll get happy. When I get that one, or this one, or that one, the cake, or the sound, or the smell, or the taste, then I'll get happy. And it's totally primordial because it's totally practiced. Buddha says we bring it into this life with us, totally programmed. Your mother doesn't have to teach you. Totally programmed. Monkeys and dogs as well. It's the main voice of this neurotic eye. And then the third one, anger, aversion, that's the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. Or it's the response once attachment does get what it wants and you keep getting more of it until eventually aversion arises because it now becomes disgusting because you can't get satisfied from it. It won't come. Attachment can't be satisfied. Attachment is impossible to be satisfied. So we're going between attachment and aversion 1,000 times a day. So the one of aversion, then we're going to look at jealousy. So what's jealousy, So attachments, this constant assumption, I must get what I want every second. It's not the main, it's not the only part of our mind. Right alongside those neuroses, we have our positive ones. And the degree to which we have our positive ones is a degree to which the negative ones don't play such a role. We'll have a reasonable life and reasonable relationships. You won't go completely potty. It's no good in this country. Potty is English. You won't go berserk, you won't go crazy. But if the delusions are more prevailing, if they prevail more than the virtues, that's when you're in trouble. So you go grasp it's just there. The sense of separate I, miserable I, bereft I. Attachment is the main voice to get what I want, the nice things. Because why? Because we think that happiness will come. Then when it doesn't, and that's 1,000 times a day, this aversion arises. And this is the one to understand. And this we'll understand depression and we'll understand anger. So I think in our normal psychology, we would never think there's any relationship between anger and depression at all, ever. But they're totally, simply two expressions of the same problem. The name of bare bone state of mind, the bare bone state of mind of attachment is, or no, another way to put it, when attachment is there, its job is, it sees the thing like the cake as more delicious than it really is. And because you're hungry for something, you think that'll do the job. So it exaggerates the delicious, the extent of your attachment, the extent of your lack of, the extent of your dissatisfaction equals the extent of the belief of the delicious, in the deliciousness of the cake. So the hankering after it is tremendous. The anticipation for the cake. So attachment exaggerates. Attachment exaggerates the deliciousness of the thing, the person, the cake, whatever it might be. Then, when the attachment's there, you go towards the object. You're excited, and you go towards it. You want to be close to it. You want to be. It's like you're magnetized by it. That we get. That's why if all day your attachment gets what it wants. The coffee's the right taste, the person's words are pleasing, the body feels good, then you get all overexcited because you think, oh, now I'm happy. Because happiness does come at one level when you get the attachment object. And the more the emotional hunger is there, therefore, and the more delicious the cake, the more the happy feelings. So then the exact opposite, when the aversion is there, it's exactly the opposite. You go away. That's the unnice thing. And attachment is like a fragile child that just can't stand anything not being nice. So the moment aversion arises, so like all this anticipation, all this excitement, and you're anticipating the chocolate cake and carrot cake comes instead. I mean, such a dumb example. Then what is going to happen instantaneously is aversion. You were shocked. I'm shocked. Go backwards. Oh my God! I said chocolate cake. That's anger, but aversion is the bare bones state of mind. So if you're volatile, like I am, I'd get angry. Excuse me, I ordered chocolate cake. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to see it, do you? I understand that's aversion. And then volatile aversion is anger. But if you're a polite person, a quiet person, you might have even more anger in your mind. I'm telling you, but you don't show it, You sit there kind of passive, like passive aggression. Do you understand me? Passive aggression, but you look polite. But there's huge anger going on in your mind, but you just don't shout. You control your speech. But it's still the same thing. The cake looks disgusting to you. You didn't order that ugly carrot cake. You want a chocolate cake. Are we communicating? It's very simple, really. We know this. So when attachment's there, we get all excited and, we want to go towards it. When aversion is there, you go, no, thank you. And the degrees of this are the one to look at. So there's anger, which is when your body's involved, when your mouth's involved. The anger really comes down to the mind, again, aversion, because what happened is that attachment just thwarted. Attachment was building up the excitement, anticipating, and then how dare this wretched thing come along that isn't what I wanted. And then aversion arises. But if you're volatile, it'll be anger. But if you're not volatile, aversion will still come. Because everyone's got attachment. Until you're a highly evolved spiritual being, attachment will be there. So the millisecond attachment doesn't get what it wants, and this really is 1,000 times a day, that's a moment of aversion. And the thing is, these build up. These build up, The They don't just disappear or in one ear out the other. There's not a single thing we ever experience, the Buddhist psychological model would say, that we don't retain in the mind. So you build up these moments. You stub your toe. Hubby says a rude word. The red light. The traffic's too noisy. Do you understand? Tiny baby events. And this is what I joke about and say, you don't go to your therapist and I say, well, hubby slurped his coffee again and I got upset. She'll laugh at you. Wait till you want to kill him and then come back. And this is our problem. We leave. These are the moments we can start to practice. When attachment doesn't get what it wants. So anyway, there's anger, the volatile level, that we all get. Then there's your milder ones. You listen to these words: annoyed, frustrated, irritated, upset. These are some of our commonest words in our lives, you know. And when do you say those words? When attachment doesn't get what it wants. And what are they? They are mild anger. They are aversion. What do you think frustrated is? Because your attachment not getting what it wants. Annoyed, your attachment not getting what it wants. Irritated, your attachment isn't getting what it wants. Upset, your attachment isn't getting what it wants. It's so clear. But we go, oh, that's normal. But it'll build up, and then there'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back at 6 p.m. We know that. Because we haven't dealt with those small moments. This is the real benefit of practice, I promise you. Catching. So, and of course, the question is, what do you do with it when it comes? And that's what we're going to discuss. This is the point. This is where the cognitive therapy comes in. This is where the techniques of the people who want to do channels into their brain work on. Changing your thoughts. Because attachment is a thought. Built along with emotion. Anger, annoyed, irritated, frustrated, upset are all thoughts. But we're so occupied with the physical, emotional component, we can't hear it. You know? This is the key, I promise. So the main problem is attachment. Anger is rooted in attachment, and attachment is rooted in the root delusion. So there's this hierarchical relationship. You know? I think we all accept. I think we all recognize these experiences. This is Buddha's analysis. You know, I'm just putting in simple words. And we take it for granted. We think, what do you mean change that? Why should I? It's something silly, you know. Everyone gets upset. Everyone gets annoyed. Yeah, we can change it. And who's the beneficiary? Apart from anybody else, you are. This is the whole point. It's not moralistic, you know. It's not like, oh, you should be a good girl. No, the Buddha's trying to say, be happy, baby. But part of the problem is, for some people, I mean, it's very evident if you're a shouting, loud, noisy person like me. It's very evident. You can't hide it, you know. But see, people who are polite and kind and good girls, trying to be good girls, you know, you don't notice. And they're the kind of people. And that's the final one. This aversion builds up and then manifests eventually as depression. You know, it's a build-up of moment after moment after moment of thwarted attachment. And the cake one is still a gross example. Even the hubby slurping his coffee is a gross example of attachment not getting what it wants. Almost second by second, attachment is not getting what it wants. And this is because attachment can't get what it wants. It can't be satisfied. That is not evident because we don't even know what attachment is. But if we take this analysis and start to look into our mind and meditate, you're going to notice that every second attachment is there. And it can never be satisfied. So it's always, so we're having moments of attachment and disappointment, attachment, disappointment, attachment, disappointment, disappointment, build out, and the build up of the disappointment moments is what depression becomes, you know. Then you can't get out of bed. Everything's dark. If the whole world looks ugly, we know that, isn't it? The whole world looks horrible. So depression, by the time we get to see it, is when the body is involved. This is too late. That's why depression is so prevalent. And so why depression is so prevalent in our culture is because attachment is prevalent. And the more attachment you've got, and because we have so many objects of attachment, you think about it. I mean, if you're born in Tibet, I don't know, in Tibet, even just whatever, before the communists came along, that you'd be bored to tears. I mean, the person with the level of attachment we've got in our culture now, and the level of objects of our attachment that keep sustaining it, You know, we'd go mad in a day. We'd go live out in the bush in a simple little house with simple little food and one kind of cake to eat. We'd all go mad. We'd all be feeling deprived. We'd all be having, like, what do you call it when you go off junk? You'd be having, withdrawal. We couldn't cope. So no wonder we have more attachment, because there were more objects of attachment. There were more moments to be disappointed. You understand? What do you think, people? Any questions on this? So far, any questions? So far, I'll say more. Eileen, how sweetheart, talk to me.
Thank you. You said, Robina, thank you, that that the root, the nature of ego grasping, or the nature of this deluded I, is fear. It's fear-based.
They're all rooted in fear. Yeah, but it's the main one. When it manifests, that's when everything shakes, completely having. Yeah, that's what panic attack is. Yeah.
But what is that fear that I won't exist if I don't get what I need and want? Where is this fear? Is it fear of losing this?
I mean, sure, when it's attachment, of course it is. Why do you think? I mean, you look at anger or aversion or annoyance or frustration or irritation, these words, they are mild panic attacks, Eileen.
Yes.
You think about it, you expect, you're building up the story. I'm talking the simplest example of the chocolate cake. The more you think that something's missing, seeing chocolate cake, they get all excited, and then the pursuit of it comes, and you start to anticipate. You get the cake, it's there, and you haven't got the cake, and you're building it up, the anticipation, and then you order it, and you're waiting for it to come, and then carrot cake turns up. It's literally, it's a shock, isn't it? Your attachment gets a shock. You go back. I didn't order this. It's like that. That's a panic attack. Anger is a panic attack. This sounds so hilarious. It's a panic attack. But the difficulties with anger is it also usually you lash out at someone else. Plain old panic attacks, it's just involved in yourself. Do you understand? But anger is like a panic attack that also wants to harm other people and push that thing away. Do you understand me?
Yes.
But when a person's shaking, when the mind is shaking, what do you think it is? You're having a panic attack. That's what anxiety is. It's a mild panic attack. Because a build-up of attachment constantly, step by step, second by second by second, and build up of thwarted attachment, second by second by second, and they're going to bump into each other, and you just can't cope. We just can't cope. We just can't cope.
But that's what I'm trying to ask, Robina. I understand, but is we can't cope because if I don't,
attachment's not getting what it wants.
Right, but if I don't get,
that is the voice of the root delusion, which making the major mistake of exaggerating the very sense of an I itself.
Yes.
So it's positing the way. It sounds so weird, but these delusions are positing things that don't exist. Attachment is hankering after a cake that it has made up. The cake on the plate is not the cake in the fantasy of our attachment. And then when you get angry, equally, how dare that cake, the carrot cake, well, it looks ugly to you because it's just thwarted attachment. But the aversion is absurdly exaggerating the ugliness of the carrot cake. Do you understand?
Yes,
but the deepest one is the root of all of them, which is so hard to see, exaggerating the very existence of everything, which sounds so abstract to us. But at least at this level, we start to look at these level. This is quite tough, it's quite hard to see it, but because it's so normal.
You understand? Yes, I do know. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And the thing is, because it's so normal, it is normal. A normal person would be this way. And we don't have a moment usually when we're not like this, occasionally. So to think that you can get rid of it, that sounds a bit weird. What kind of person would I be? We can't even imagine the kind of person you'd be. If you didn't have attachment and anger, you sound as boring as anything. We think, how boring. Who wants to be like that? Do you understand? We can't even imagine it. Do you understand? What do people think? Any questions? Yeah, go.
So, when you talk about.
Go down.
Was it? Hello? Is it on? Oh. Hello?
Okay, good.
Is there such a thing as a good attachment, like a healthy attachment?
Well, see, this is the thing. I mean, strictly speaking, you can say, of course, there is, but to be really no, not strictly speaking, but to be general, yes, but to be really strict in this clear analysis of these states of mind in the Buddhist literature, it goes to incredibly sophisticated levels of subtlety. Do you understand? So to really be clear, no, by definition, there can't be, because in its nature, what Buddha refers to as attachment, not what you're thinking of, which means close to your wife or good, attached to friends. We say it in a very general way in our culture, so we don't use this word as a problem. But the one that he's referring to is emotional hunger. So is there a good emotional hunger? I'm not sure. Possessiveness, is that a good, would that be a useful part? Self-centeredness, is that useful? So you analyze all the bits of it, then we can get to see what he's referring to. We'd give him a half a dozen different names. Control freak, that's attachment. Even we're looking at the more intellectual level of just the uncontrolled conceptual thoughts. Why our thoughts are uncontrolled is because each thought arises, it's not making us happy, so we have other thoughts. It's never ending. And uncontrolled thoughts, OCD, that's attachment level. ADHD, that's attachment. Uncontrolled, unable to concentrate. All of this, those multitudes of levels of it, in the way the Buddhist analysis of this mind. And this is coming from the Indians 3,000 years ago. So these high beings who achieve these high results is because they've given up attachment. And that therefore, the person, if you've given up attachment, you'd be blissful, you'd be radiant, you'd be clear, you'd be fulfilled, you wouldn't be emotionally hungry, you wouldn't be self-centered, you'd be loving, you'd be kind, you'd be all the things that you'd like to be, and anything you might, you understand my point? So it's a very specific analysis the way Buddhism uses it. But I mean, don't hold your breath to wait till you get rid of it. I'm being really extreme here how I'm talking about it, because it's just utterly pervasive. So we start by learning to harness it.
So I've seen things where it's written that.
Say it again.
I've read things from analysis of the Buddha where it said it was grasping and clinging to these things.
That's another word. They're synonyms. They are synonyms for the word attachment.
Okay.
They are the meaning. Attachment is the simplest word to use, and it's all craving, grasping, clinging. They're all just synonyms.
Yeah, that we have to have it, and if we don't, that we have to have it, and we don't get it, then.
Well, we can see countries from our daily lives. I mean, everything I've said now, using ordinary language we all use, we all recognize what I'm talking about, you know.
Okay.
You understand?
Thank you.
So when you say attachment, though, did you have any view of what you thought it meant? What do you think it means in ordinary life? How would you use the word?
Well, I'm learning what it means the last few months, but you know, I was at your talk a couple weeks ago where you said you differentiate between attachment and love.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
So I understand now that attachment is really about grasping, clinging.
That's right. Exaggerating, distorting. It's not happy. It's coming from a feeling of not being enough. And that's the real point. It's coming from right in here of being this fractured person. A person who's expressing volatile attachment and control freak and all the rest is because we're not happy in here. This is the real place it's coming from. There's an assumption I'm not enough and I don't have enough. Do you understand me?
The disease of more.
Huh?
The disease of more.
Oh, that's right, exactly. I mean, that's how we are, isn't it? We all know that one. And then the thing is, it's a bottomless pit. Because we can see this. I mean, I remember my mother used to say as a child, when I was little, I was a child, I was little because I was attached to my food. And she'd say, and I'd think about it. She'd say, the more you get, the more you want. And that's the real suffering of attachment. If we can really see that. And we all can see it. We all know that's what a junkie is. Why did, I got up to 80 Marlboros. Why? Because I kept thinking, well, next cigarette will do it. And by the time I managed to smoke my 18 Marlboros, I got to 80 Marlboros in between the marijuanas. Couldn't do it now. You have to be living on the street, wouldn't you? You can't live in a house and eat. I mean, smoking a lot these days must be about 5 cigarettes because you've got to go outside. You're like a pariah, aren't you? If you smoke cigarettes now. I can't imagine.
Thank you.
So it's something, but it's so pervasive and so natural and so normal. It just seems cruel to even talk about it as a problem. Do you understand me? Because there's no ordinary human being who doesn't have it. So that's why Buddha's analysis is so shocking. That's it. It's very hilarious. Yeah, hello, sweetheart. Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You were talking at the beginning about delusion.
That word, the use of the
Yeah.
term delusion, yeah.
Delusion. I was wondering what the difference between delusion and illusion.
I know there's words that are used a lot in Buddhism, aren't they? There's a big difference, yes. Let me just use them I'll explain. So you could say, the Buddha's saying, that the degree to which we're caught up in delusions, such as anger, attachment, jealousy, and pride, what he's meaning is in their nature, they are deluded states of mind, meaning the degree to which you're caught up in anger is the degree to which everything will look ugly to you. And a patient person sitting next to you will wonder what the hell you're going on about, because you're seeing things they're not seeing. So anger is a deluded state of mind. It causes ugly things to look worse to you than they really are if you've got anger. Attachment exaggerates the deliciousness. It's in that sense they are delusions, and they cause you to be deluded. Put it that way. That's how they say. But illusion, so you could say, because the degree to which you are deluded is the degree to which things are illusory. They don't exist like that. So it's a different use of the word, that's all. They talk a lot in the Buddhist literature like that. Things are like an illusion. Well, it's a good way to put it. Cake right now, when we're really hungry for the cake, and cake's a simple example, full of attachment for that cake, imagining it's this delicious divine object. Well, that fantasy cake is illusory. So that's the way that you say the words. The delusion is the name of the state of the mind, and it causes things to, and the things that you think exist there are illusory, are not true, are like illusions. That's the way to use the word. Do you see my point? Yeah. So this attachment goes, I mean, this is the thing, when we look back at, when we point out these practices coming from these Indians well before the Buddha, they're the ones who, with their amazing technique that they cultivated, they developed, called single-pointed concentration, the likes of which, and I keep saying it as a fact, do not exist in modern psychology or neuroscience, absolutely do not exist. These amazing Indians, they're just geniuses. They developed this incredibly sophisticated technique, a method for learning to focus the mind to degrees of subtlety that we literally don't even posit. So it's only really at that level we can do the really incredible work of seeing the mind so clearly, and unpacking and unraveling all these conceptual thoughts and getting rid of them. So that, that's all we can do is start where we are, obviously.
Venerable, there are some questions on the chat.
Good, darling. Talk to me. Yeah, please say them, or have the person say them themselves. It helps to have a conversation.
Okay.
Who is this?
Scarlett, I think you were up first, and then
You want to talk to me, Scarlett? Talk to me, sweetheart. Be nice to talk.
Hello, Venerable. So is it like correct to think that all these feelings that occur, all these delusions that we have, is because we think that we have a self, but really we don't. The ego doesn't exist. And until we start to meditate and we go really deep into a practice and transform that there is no self understanding, these delusions will continue to happen.
Okay, I understand, sweetheart. I understand, Scarlett. So yes, if you do, again, looking at this Buddhist analysis, what he's saying is that what we think is existing isn't. So the delicious cake that appears to our mind when attachment is prevailing, that cake doesn't exist there. Attachment exaggerates its status. When anger is there, that ugly person you think is the cause of all your suffering, the anger exaggerates their ugliness. So that person that we as appearing to us doesn't exist like that. So the more subtle mistake, the subtlest mistake, is this ego grasping that exaggerates the very nature of our own self. It's a much more subtle mistake. So Buddha is not saying there is no cake. He's not saying the person didn't punch you in the nose. And he's even not saying there is no self. It's a question of how they exist. It's the way they exist. So the self that we think is there, this concrete, solid, separate, set in stone me, that self doesn't exist. So that's the subtlest delusion, the deepest delusion, the most primordial delusion, and the others are all rooted in this one. So when you've, so the obvious, you would start with the branch ones first. If you lessen attachment and lessen anger and lessen jealousy, then you are loosening the grip already of the root one. But you've got to get directly to the root one. That's where in the meditations on emptiness, where you cut that completely. Do you understand, Scarlett?
Oh, yes, yes. I just one more follow-up is that, so when we see the cake, I'm understanding that everything happens in the mind. Like you talked about, like that cake, we're experiencing the cake in the mind. It doesn't happen
All
outside.
right, say it again. The experience of the cake in your mind. What do you mean?
So I guess what I'm trying to say is when someone makes us angry, the anger is not outside. It's not that person. It's our mind.
No. What
Oh.
you say, Scarlett, I don't understand. Would you make that a question, please? I don't understand it. Make that a-
Yes. So
What do you
whatever is causing these delusions, it's not happening outside our mind. It's happening within our mind.
So what's your question about that?
So
What's your point?
my question is that what you mean by the delusion? Because things are not how they appear to be. I always hear this all the time.
That's what Buddha's saying. The use of the word delusion here is to refer to attachment, anger, ego grasping, pride, jealousy, low self-esteem. They are labeled a delusion. That's all, because they cause you to not be in touch with reality. This is the use of the word. Do you understand me?
Yes, but it gets confusing when one says it's not the way things appear to be. Like someone
What?
making me,
Stop, Scarlett. What do you mean is confusing? What is confusing?
if someone's making me angry, that's a
But just
delusion.
stop again, just to keep the words accurate. There's a person there saying words that trigger your anger. That's a better way to put it, okay?
Yes.
The person saying words that are triggering your anger. Good. We understand that. So what's the question?
How is that a delusion?
What piece of it is, so what are you referring to as a delusion here?
The anger. How is that
No, the
anger?
anger itself, anger is a real thing that does exist, but it is a state of mind that isn't accurate. It is exaggerating. So therefore it's not to say that anger is a delusion, meaning anger doesn't exist, is nonsense. Anger does exist. It is a deluded state of mind because what it causes what it causes in your mind is for that person to appear really ugly. Do you agree with that?
Yes, yes.
So it is a deluded state of mind. Are you hearing me?
Yes, and so are we supposed to just transform that into
What,
virtuous
darling?
thought?
What? Yeah,
So,
what? Say it again.
so
What?
because that's deluded, then we transform that anger
No, you
into.
don't no, that's too complicated. No, you don't transform it, dear. You hear, you analyze what it's saying. So what anger, if if that person's annoying you and you start to say, oh, I'm feeling anger, and then you go wait till they've gone, then you do your analysis. So you ask yourself, what is anger saying? It's a story you're making up. And this anger is saying, how dare he do that to me? This was not fair. I did not do anything wrong. Who does he think he is? You are you're really upset, as we say, because he is doing things that you think are wrong. So that's what anger's saying. So you've got to then look at how those thoughts aren't accurate. They're an exaggeration of his ugliness. He is so horrible. He is the cause of all my suffering. It is an exaggeration. It is not a valid analysis of the of that event. When you describe the cake, wow, it's you can't imagine that divine cake. It's the most delicious chocolate cake I've ever known. It's going to make me so happy. That is deluded. It is not an accurate assessment of the cake. Can you hear the point? You don't transform it. You first see it's there. You listen to what it is saying, and you then try to identify how it is not an accurate assessment of something. It's an exaggerated, distorted assessment of the object. Can you hear my point? So you learn to this is the real work, when you break down that attachment and you hear it, and then you argue with it. You say to yourself, well, you know, Charlotte, that cake doesn't exist like that. I've just made up a fantasy. You argue with it. And then, as Lama Zopa says, really good practice is, and then even though it appears to you again later, next cake tomorrow, you catch it and you don't believe in the story. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
That's the real hard job to do. And it's quite literal. It's sort of like you really are making a mistake. The cake that you describe through the lenses of attachment isn't the cake on the plate. It's really obvious, because after 5 pieces, how does the cake look now? Totally repulsive. So the cake you describe when attachment is there is a delicious divine cake, and the cake you describe after 5 pieces is a disgusting, revolting cake. It's the same damn cake. So it is obvious attachment exaggerates its deliciousness, and you've got to catch that story and then its conceptual thoughts, and you argue with it. And anger and aversion the same. When you say, oh, that disgusting cake, take it away from me. And you say to yourself, well, excuse me, Carl, I've just had 5 pieces. Why does it look disgusting? Because my attachment is thwarted now, and aversion is arising, and aversion is writing a disgusting story. They're both not true. They're both invalid cognitions. You argue with them. This is not easy. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. But the trouble is, they're emotional. So once the emotion kicks in, it's way too late. This is why we've got to practice every day, and catch what's in the mind. You know, it's a tremendously difficult job. Demands enormous amount of practice and discipline and skill. Every day, every day, every day. What else, people?
Couple more on the Zoom. Gould,
Yeah.
want to just
Oh,
jump
go
in?
on, Gould, talk to me.
Go ahead, Gould.
Hello, thank you so much.
Good.
I was just going to reflect on a little bit about, so recently a lot of my work, personal work, has to do with kind of like rejection wound, like where that comes from,
Okay, I understand.
and how that can lead to looking like external for validation, how that can be attachment and aversion and things like that.
Okay, so you mean rejection, meaning people rejecting you?
Yeah, and really kind
Pain of being rejected, you mean?
yeah, feeling it out, and even in the past, and seeing like, was it really being rejected, or was it my perception? Was it my
Okay, so it's a good one. This is a very good one to talk about. So, okay, so again, you see, in general, if we're looking at this Buddhist view, if to be trying to do the analysis as well as we can, we recognize there are always 2 things. So there's the cake, and there's my mind seeing the cake. There's the husband slurping his coffee, and my interpretation of it. Do you understand? There's always going to be the thing out there and me here. So the concept of rejection is, let's say I'm in love with that boy, or I'm feeling I like that boy, or I want that boy, and then I feel he rejects me. So there's 2 things. There's me, there's the boy doing an action, and then there's me interpreting it. That's the way to put it. So rejection is a really good word for one of the functions of attachment. So the deepest attachment involved here, forget cake, you know, forget sex and drugs and rock and roll. The deepest attachment, the most primordial attachment, Gould, is this emotional hunger to be seen and heard and approved of and validated. It's much more subtle, and everybody's got it, but some of us suffer more from that than others. Are you following me so far?
Definitely.
So if we've got strong neediness, since we're little boys and girls, and many of us have, you know, to be seen and heard, and if that's really strong, even when we are being validated by mummy, even we are being praised by daddy, we never feel it's enough. We'll always be feeling I'm not enough, I'm never being seen properly, no one's ever hearing me. And that can be also very true. You might have a mummy and daddy who do reject you. That also is not wrong, but we always tend to think, so you've got to analyze the validity of the external event, or look into the state of mind and see if that's more than the event, more than the event. Do you understand? We've got to own our part of it. Do you understand?
Right.
So with the strong attachment to being seen and heard, we'll always feel like we've been rejected, that no one loves me, and I'm always being abandoned. People talk about being abandoned, you know. So we'll say, oh, that's because my mother didn't love me, or because I was given away when I was 7. But not everybody who's given away at 7 feels abandoned. So we always see the outside event as the main cause. But if we look at it this way, we're really trying to practice, when we look at the events in our life, they are good indicators of what is going on in our mind, and we can really try to see our mind. I mean, I was always very volatile as a child. I could say everybody was ugly because they all made me angry, but all that did was point to my anger. So that's the job to look at, is look at our own mind, you know. Are you with
Right.
me? Cool.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And during this like process of feeling out that area of rejection and then looking for validation, I kind of like revisited it, and naturally something came up, like a memory from, I don't know, 30 years ago.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
I was really young, and I was around someone, and just being a kid, like I was just being me, just being free, talking, saying whatever. And someone
Yeah.
turned to me and
Yeah.
said, you're a pain in the blank.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
And it you know, it caught me, and I was
That's
holding
right.
it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So
And
this
just
is why.
recently that it came up, and it let me know. I said, oh, there's this belief that like I'm too much, or I'm a hassle. And that was with me that whole time. And in this past like week or so, that
Yeah,
memory came up, and it colored my
and that's what happens to me. And when we do remember that, so the thing is, when we remember the memories, again, the two things, there's the thing that the person said, and then there's our response to it. But what we tend to think in our world is it's the event out there that caused it. But the Buddha's point is we've got already that neediness to be seen even before the event, and we suffer the degree to which we have that neediness. You know, that's always the point, to look back at the mind. Things might well have happened out there, and but if we want to try and remember them, it's good, because they're the indicators of the problem in the suffering in our mind. And the suffering is the amount of attachment, not the extent of their words. That's the part we have to learn to look at and know it's our own mind. It doesn't mean we're blame or anything. It's just not a question of that. So, but it's very hard to see this. Do you understand?
Definitely, yeah.
So then we have to think that the obvious question when it comes to attachment to being approved of, it's a very blunt one. We have to think, well, we should ask, even just try and analyze it. Well, what is it in me? Why do I think I am not valid until someone else approves of me? That's the question we have to ask. And it's quite shocking, because we just assume I am not enough until I'm approved of. I am not enough until someone hears me and validates me. This is the most subtle attachment we have. And it's quite a shocking thing to think about. Because, I mean, this is the whole point. As we're giving up attachment, we are literally learning to become content within ourselves. Do you understand me? That's the goal.
Right, because it's kind of what you said. Like, even if you get the thing, it's not gonna heal that wound or fill that gap. You're still gonna be looking for that like self-acceptance.
That's right. So let's just take. So that's why, you know, we got to work at the different levels of attachment. But even just by controlling attachment to cake, that can also begin to help us heal the attachment to being seen and heard. Because attachment's attachment. It just manifests in different ways. Do you understand?
Wow. Yeah.
Do you understand?
Wow.
But it's very primordial, so subtle, so deep. You know, but we just have to keep looking. But this is the way for me to be very clear about it. Always we can think of it this way. 1 is the external event, and 2 is my interpretation. So yes, the external event happened to whatever degree, but we've got to look at the interpretation. We've got to look at our role in it. We've got to look at the way we interpreted that. But we tend not to do that. We see the external thing as an absolute. Do you understand?
Yes. Wow. Okay.
In other words, if a person is more fulfilled in themselves, another person saying a mean word just won't hurt them. But at another person who's needing desperately to be seen and heard, they will be wounded unbearably. Do you understand me?
Yeah. And I think that early experience, I recognize how that colored my perception the years later. So even if there was something like very simple and not even a big deal, it seemed more because of that experience. So like I was able to.
It's not. No. So then, what's the learning in you for that? How would you say to learn about it? How would you learn about, how would you take that as a learning for you?
Probably just kind of sitting with how certain experiences can color and make things seem much more than they
How
actually
what?
are.
Say it again, how what?
How certain experiences can kind of like can color our experience and make it seem like more than it actually is.
So that event back then is simply an example, is an opportunity for you to look at what was in your mind, which is the need to be seen as a nice boy,
Right, right.
isn't it? That's what I'm getting at. It's the name of the state of mind in your mind, in Gould's mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you understand my point? That's the point. That's the learning from it. Because that just didn't come from nowhere. We've all got that. And then we can, when we remember our memories. Yeah, I mean, the little Gould is still, I mean, we're pretty much, until we start doing the work, it's got to be the same little Robina, whether she's 80 or 8, the same problems keep occurring. So that the memories, and when we were little, they're just examples that remind us of the work we need to do now, because we can heal. We don't have to go. That's the interesting point. In our culture, I think we have to go back to heal it. We don't. Remembering it is enough so we can do the healing now. Do you understand?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you understand? Cool.
Wow. Yeah, I do. Thank you so much.
Good. So keep going. It's good. Well done. Hello, Meredith.
Hello, Venerable. Thank you so much.
Good.
My question is, while I appreciate that these poisons are foundational, and
Say
really,
that again, darling. Say that again. What?
I appreciate that the poisons we're talking about here, they're foundational, they're primordial, and they're sort of the
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
cyclic existence. But does the Buddha provide any analysis on their origins, or is that sort of question unhelpful because it's not really practical?
No,
Or
it's a very good question. But the interesting point is the Buddha would say that you mean you want the first moment of it. You want where it began. Well, see, that very question itself for the Buddha is like laughable. Because if everything is cause and effect, he says that cause and effect is this natural law that runs the universe, especially our minds. So by definition, if cause and effect is a natural law that runs the universe, how can you ever have a first moment?
beginningless time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so dumb to us, it sounds absurd. And the commonest thing we all say is everything must have a first moment. There must be a first moment. There must be a first this. There must be. And that's why the Christians, with respect, have a very intensive philosophy, how there can be a first cause. And of course, they call it God. But for the Buddhist view, it's a non-question. And all it points out to is another delusion in the mind that we believe everything is uncaused and permanent and solid and set in stone. And it's so instinctive, we don't even think about it.
Thank you, Venerable.
You understand? Okay, good, Meredith. Who's that? I can't read. I'm blind as a bat. What's this? Nicole. Hello, Nicole. Talk to me.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. I have more of a comment and then maybe it'll turn into a question. I wanted to share that I guess it was 20 years ago now, maybe more. The first time someone told me no one makes you feel angry. The anger's in you.
There you go.
More angry. And I couldn't accept that for a very long time.
Of course not. That's right.
And I finally wrapped my head around it, and I was drawn to the word discipline. I think I have a fairly decent practice going, and yet I struggle to slow down in the middle of the day. I try to slow down several times a day and check in with myself. And it's just, there's this resistance. It's like I'm at war with to stop even just for 3 minutes for 21 breaths. I wondered if you had any inspiration for that.
Well, I mean, don't you think if you're working, sounds to me, you've got a good practice, you're learning more and more and more to see your mind. Why do you have to slow down? Why can't you just keep doing it every day? Seeing your mind when you're going fast. Why do you have to slow down? It sounds a bit artificial. If you're out of control, yes.
Yeah.
If you're out of control and losing the plot and getting angry and upset, then yes, indeed, take a moment. But if you're learning to work on your mind every day, you keep getting better at it. So even when you're driving, when you're talking, you just keep doing it. So why do you have to take a break? Unless you're berserk. So if you're going berserk, then yes, please take a break. But otherwise, no necessary. It just seems too artificial, in my opinion, frankly.
Thank you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's
I
part
mean,
of
there's a bit of a thing in,
driving.
I mean, people talk about going slow and slowing down and taking your breath. Well, I mean, I think, excuse me, I'm going to swear here, fuck that. Not interested. Too self-conscious. I don't want to know, okay?
Yeah.
Boring. Be speedy and do your work and keep watching your mind, honey. It's all right.
Thank you.
You see what I'm saying? It's a bit
Yeah, no, I
self-conscious.
appreciate that.
Watch the breath. You know, I remember going to one meeting one time, a bunch of different Buddhists from all over the world, and as soon as a little bit of discussion started to come, the mediator would come in, the boss on the front. He'd say, "Watch the breath." Oh, I got so annoyed. You don't have to. I just think you've got to know your own mind and know what
Yeah.
you can and can't handle and how much you can work with. You know, if you have a good practice, you do it every day. You do your job. You have to talk fast, walk fast, do this, do that, and just keep getting better at it. And if you are berserk, then yes, take a break, definitely.
So can I ask a follow-up question? This weekend I went to a retreat at Shantideva, or not Shanti, at Shravasti Abbey, and it was on compassion in our times now. And on the last day, the last discussion, there was sort of a call to action and to have us, to talk about what we were going to do to try to help what's happening in the world. And I guess I'm looking for validation because I feel like the most I can do right now is just run my life and not listen to the news
I
and
agree.
help
Fine.
the
Yes, I
people
agree.
around
I
me.
mean,
And
I agree, totally agree, totally. I mean, it's always since beginningless time, human beings have problems, countries have problems, you know, it's just, nothing's new, nothing's new. Sometimes when we've never, sometimes some people, I mean, sometimes we become notice things, but some people don't, but you know, some people, you grow up in your life and you never notice. Many people right now have not a clue what's going on so-called politically because they're involved in other things. Not everybody's politically active or politically noticing, but suddenly when you start noticing it, we think, you know, it's like revolution and you should start running around and doing something. I mean, the world's the same all wherever you go, you know. If you want to be involved in doing something to help the world be a better place, then go for it. But meanwhile, as you just said, do your own job, mind your own business, work on yourself, work on your mind, deal with people at work, deal with your family. That's helping the world. If you want to go out and be Mother Teresa, do it. Want to go and be, you know, Martin Luther King, do it. But everyone's got their own calling, you know.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, call to action. There's nothing different. So Mr. Trump's, I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah, I got really spun out because I thought I felt I thank you.
No,
Appreciate
you
it.
don't need to. Come on.
Thank you.
What's new, you know? He'll be gone soon. Don't worry about it. Okay, the economy might or might not collapse. We don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty. But I had to start admiring Mr. Trump, quite frankly. I've never known a politician with such courage. Excuse me. If other politicians could have such courage to do what look what he can do. I mean, how everybody thinks, oh, he's got to go to Congress to get the votes. He's just doing it. So why not have someone who's doing good things as well? It just shows he is so outrageous. He's showing what they can do. I just can't get over this man. You know, I think he's unbelievable. He's trying to change the entire. I mean, what courage? I mean, he might be a maniac. I don't care, but that quality I cannot learn from it. Please learn from it. You know, but politicians just up their own bums, as we say in Australia. Too scared to do anything. They might get up because they don't like being disliked. He doesn't care what the world thinks of him. Everybody hates him. He doesn't mind. He thrives on it. You've got to admire the man. I'm sorry. You've got to admire him. Do you understand me?
He doesn't have that attachment.
Whatever. I don't know what he's got. He's got pretty. It just blows my mind. I can't tell you, this man blows my mind. I tell you. So do what we have to. Each person different. You do what you have to do. Do you understand? Go, Nicole. It's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nothing's changing. What else, people? 8:45. Time to go home. Any questions? Yes, darling girl. Go on, talk to me. Microphone.
You keep saying dogs and monkeys.
Yeah.
And I wondered what you meant.
What?
I wondered what you meant by
Okay, all I
quality.
mean is this is an interesting point. The Buddhist view of the mind is of all beings in the universe, from hell beings to spirits to gods to humans, animals, monkeys, bugs, slugs, and you name it. The mind is the mind is the mind, and depending on karma, you've got a slug body or a human body or a god body or a hell body. It's all minds. Buddha's view of the mind covers billions and trillions of universes. All minds are the same. And the Buddha's view is we have suffering and you have happiness, and we can become a Buddha and get rid of everything. So his view of the mind is not just for humans. No way. Do you understand? That's the point. Okay. And we can see it. I mean, look at, we can see it. I mean, animals are more blatant. They're hilarious. Look at attachment to beautiful bodies. I mean, you watch those shows, especially this one show I saw about these birds, and some of them were in the Pacific, these outrageously insane, over-the-top, hilarious coloured birds, all the boys. The girls are like boring and grey, and this is even from our karma. It's hilarious. These birds, you've never seen anything like them. But what's really outrageous and hilarious, this is for me, it's karma. Because the Buddha says everything we think and do and say stays in the mind. And so, and you create the next person. So if you think, for example, these birds, these birds, they spent their entire life, one of them would spend his entire life building this house, like a stupidest house you've ever seen, because he has his two little claws, little bits of straw on top, like 9 stories of straw, and the only reason was to win the girl. And then the other boy, the bird, would do a dance. He had his routine, like day after week after month, practicing this ridiculous routine just to get the girl. But when they got the girl, I'm going to be blunt now, they got the girl, it was one quick thing and out, and that's all over. No houses, no neighbors, no children. I mean, we're so dramatic. We build up houses and children. They just have a thing and they go again next year for another, stick it in the dick, with that. I mean, it's beyond, it's so obvious that attachment. So if you are good, or even I remember one time, one of these shows about these ants was Attenborough, the English fellow, and he's so amazed by these amazing ants. They're becoming more technologically brilliant than anybody can imagine. Well, all he can see is these ants living in 7 floors of building, and there's 22 degrees here. And they all got this system and this amazing process of how they live in these anthills, these geniuses technologically. Well, what you can see is due to attachment. For example, that bird dancing all day, attachment being a ballet dancer. All day, a human being with brilliant skill, obsessed with being a ballet dancer, with attachment. So what do you think you're going to get born as? A bloody bird with an idiot mind because of attachment, but to the same activity. You keep doing your dance, or you build your house, or these ants, these clever, it seems to be clever engineers and mathematicians. Due to attachment, you're born as a silly ant, and you're programmed with all these activities. That's how karma works. Do you understand it? Do you watch animals? You watch all those monkey shows. They're exactly the same as humans, just more stupid and more gross and more brutal. I mean, we're a bit clever, that's all. Exactly the same. You see jealousy, you see pride, you see attachment, exactly the same. You understand? It's very hilarious. That's karma. That's the Buddha's view. You create your own, you literally create the cause. So if it's attachment, you do your actions with attachment, you retain that technological skill. But you get you get the body of a bloody ant. Do you understand? You retain that dancing all day, but you become a silly bird. Do you understand me? So better not do it with attachment. Do it, but do it with bodhicitta, do it with compassion, do it with wisdom. Then you get another decent human body, and at least keep your wits about you. Do you understand? Yeah. It's hilarious, isn't it? Really. Do you see we're exactly the same? You look at animals, exactly the same. Their power struggles, their jealousy, their pride. It's exactly the same. It's naked. So the mind's the same. It depends on the degree of ignorance. And the degree of ignorance is dependent upon the ego grasping, and attachment and aversion. All right, that's the Buddha's view. What else? Something go home time, Mason? Something to think about. So the word delusion is true. And see, the thing is, even you're going to see in different Buddhist books, you can tell from people how they ask questions, the books we've read, because all the different Buddhist traditions use these same words in different ways. Like illusory is a really common one. Delusory, delusion. They all use it in a different way in different translations, which is a bit of a problem because we haven't got common definitions, And it happens to be, for me, the word delusion, I use it a lot because it's clear that attachment is deluded, you're deluded. You really believe in that divine cake that you have made up. So that's your other one more point, Scarlett. Are you still there or have you gone home? Scarlett, are you there still?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so I tell you, so the anger, get it clear here. The other part about your question is this. Let's say, you know, that boy did punch me in the nose. That's not deluded. To say he punched me in the nose, that's not deluded. That's fact. You with me here? So that's where it's difficult. But then we'd say, but I'm allowed to be angry because he did punch me. But what we've got to see is he did punch me. There is a cake, but attachment exaggerates the deliciousness of the cake, and the anger exaggerates the ugliness of the person who punched me, although we don't think we're exaggerating it. That's the thing we have to look at. Do you understand me? I mean, Gould was rejected when he's a little boy. He was. But we've got to look at our mind and observe the intensity in Gould's case, let's say, of the emotional hunger to be seen as a nice boy. And so the pain was real. That's not delusion. Gould was really he really experienced pain when he was insulted. But he's got to see, like all of us, that the degree of his pain doesn't equal the degree of the ugly words. The degree of his pain is his need to be approved of. So the way the cake appears is due to the attachment in my mind. The way my anger is the main cause of, you know, my anger, how dare he do that to me? We've got to distinguish the facts from what our mind is thinking. And this is the part that's difficult, you know. Do you understand, Scarlett?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Venerable.
Because a person who, let's say you were a bodhisattva, a person who's given up attachment and anger, not only that, but has got phenomenal compassion, and they're real people. A bodhisattva who was punched in the nose, their experience of it will be so totally different that you wouldn't even believe it was the same event. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I've been kind of mixing that up with sort of my
That's right. Exactly. I understand that.
Because I think you're talking about like me being an everyday person, that like if someone made me angry or someone punched me in the nose, yeah, it happened. But what I'm trying to understand is what you're saying is when we talk it out, are we supposed to realize that it happened because of causes and conditions?
See, that's another whole discussion. Like I said earlier, forget even about karma. We're just looking at the mind right now, and that's good enough. But that's also, if you want to go deeper, of course, that's a totally vital part of the practice as a Buddhist. And that would be the first part. I mean, a bodhisattva, having not just the view of karma, but no doubt being clairvoyant because they're so advanced, they would know the event that was the cause of it 47 lives ago, and then they would have such compassion for this person, and they would have a total sense of responsibility that this person got so angry is because they know they must have harmed them in the past, so they have such compassion for that person because they realize that their past action caused it. So a bodhisattva's got a whole different, you understand my point? Of course that plays a role. Of course it is. It's a totally vital part of it. But we're just looking at the mind part here. Forget the karmic one. Do you understand?
Yes. Thank you.
Good, darling. Good. That's why that story I tell about those nuns, I always quote that same story. In New York in 2003, Richard Gere invited he invited His Holiness to come. So he decided to do something with prisoners. And he was going to work with us when I was doing Liberation Prison Project, but he decided to change his mind. Never mind. But he invited 20 former prisoners to come and meet His Holiness, all of whom have done some kind of meditation in prison. And people like me were invited as well, because I was working with our project. So it was a very moving day, you know, a very moving day. All the prisoners talking about their suffering and the racism and the this and the that and whatever. And they all met His Holiness and they had a wonderful day. But Richard Gere also invited these 2 young Tibetan nuns who had been tortured and sexually abused in prison in Tibet. So what was moving in that example, for me, is why it's a good analysis to do. It was clear in their discussing of their suffering, there were tears even, but it was clear there was no anger. And this is why it's an extra component here, and I always talk about this, but this is where we really can see how attachment and anger Are these philosophical views? They're like they've got their own elaborate stories, you know. And so if you analyze, like I've said before, analyze what anger says. So we would have anger. Think about it. Anger says, "How dare they do that to me? I don't deserve it." And the pain of that, of course, is so real. But why we even say that, why we have anger, especially, my feeling is, if we live in this culture and we believe we didn't ask to get born, we believe either God made us or mummy or daddy, then it's really true. There is no logic to why someone would suddenly rape you when you've done nothing to deserve it. It's so true. So saying, "How dare they do that to me? I don't deserve it," is totally valid if you think you didn't ask to get born. If you think you started in your mother's womb and there was no you before. I agree, it's a totally valid response. But if you have the Buddhist view and it's integrated into your life, like it will be for these young nuns, karma's been in their culture for 1200 years, for God's sake. It's totally integrated. For them, that's the view of the world. In the same way that we take materialism for granted and neuroscience, they take that view for granted. So that's in their bones, this view of karma. So there they are in prison. They know why this is happening because they've done it before. It's not just a theory for them. So therefore, their whole way of dealing with it would have been completely different. So that's why they weren't angry, because they didn't have the thought, why, how dare that happen to me? I don't deserve it. That doesn't even arise in their mind. Got to understand, all these emotions, they're not set in stone. They're all just expressions of conceptual stories, assumptions deep in our bones. So these young women eventually, one of them very sad, she said, and of course we had compassion for our torturers because we know we must have harmed them in the past and because we know they will suffer in the future. That's the basis of compassion, and that's absolutely rooted in the view of karma. You can't have that unless you have a view like that. It's not possible. It's not rational. So that's the bigger picture, and I always like that example. Do you understand, Scarlett?
Yes, and I remember this story where
That's right.
they've told it, and so I try to kind of reflect on myself.
That's right.
Things happen because of the story I heard.
understand that, Dom. So that's why I've always been, for me, the extreme stories are often very helpful because they really express. I mean, this really expresses the Buddhist view, you know. So it's a tough one. My goodness, because it's so utterly different from the view we've been brought up with as just a normal truth, the scientific view you made by your mother and father. You know, it's just shocking to hear this one. Quite shocking, but it's the Buddhist view. So we can go home now. Food for thought. Okay, people. But see, of course, we go on about the suffering part, but we have to keep remembering this all applies to happiness as well. But that's why I always joke, no one ever says, you know, why is someone happy? Why is someone being kind to me? Why do good things happen? We don't care why. Just give me more, you know, because it's attachment. Attachment is an assumption that only good things should happen, and anger is an assumption that bad things should never happen. And they're both, from the Buddhist perspective, utterly irrational assumptions. They're completely deluded, which is kind of fascinating. So way to go, people. We keep practicing, keep looking, keep analyzing, keep checking, keep practicing, keep healing our wounded hearts, which is true. We are wounded because of our delusions, you know. Heal our wounded hearts so then we can help other people. Jang Chub, Sem Chog, Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Yu Chig, Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne, Gong Du, Pel Ba Shog. Did you read the news today that Lama Zopa has been found? Did you read that? Yeah. His Holiness wrote a note to the FPMT meeting in Copan. 150 people in Copan all having a meeting. And he wrote a note 2 weeks ago and they announced it in Nepal. He didn't say any more than he just said he's been found. Got to keep looking, checking and doing whatever and keep doing the practices. So that's good to know. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling. See you all soon, somewhere in the moon. I don't know, who knows where. Thanks, sweetheart.